I wanted to ask you, is there an end of time in your religion? Because in Christianity, well, for example, in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27-28 says, "As it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment, so Christ was once offered to bear the sins of many, and unto them that," the Bible says, "unto them that look for him, he shall appear the second time, and without sin unto salvation." And so we believe that time will end. Do you believe that time will end? Because we hold that as the hope for humanity, that there is hope. And if you don't believe that time will end, I don't see how your religion has hope.
Good point.
Okay. In terms of time, is there an end of time?
Correct.
That part in Hinduism, no, there is not. There is. Some have believed that the whole universe will expand and then contract and then expand and then contract with an endless continuation, and that there is no end to that, and we are in an expansion of the universe now, but eventually it would cease to expand, it would contract. The Big Bang would reverse and would go back to that, and then it would all start again.
And the comment was, in our religion, there's hope for that, and there doesn't seem to be much hope in Hinduism. All right, next question. He's going to ask questions.
Okay, so no offense, but your religion is a little confusing. Christianity is one God, and you're many gods. And I did see at my street, there was a parade, and they had brought the God of prosperity, and there was another Indian family, but and I said, "Oh, are you going to march in the parade?" And they said, "No," and I said, "Aren't you Hindu?" And they said, "No, we're a different Hindu, so we can't march with them." And I'm like, I am so confused. So I'm sorry, but his religion seems easier and less confusing than yours.
Do you have a comment, or just move on?
Well, just because something is easier and less confusing doesn't mean that it's true.
Just to kind of summarize on what you said before, you were saying that one of the ways you could help aid with karma to get reincarnated into a higher life form was based on your deeds or your worship, right?
Reincarnated into the higher life form.
It's based on your deeds.
That is one of the beliefs. Some people say you're learning, some people say your worship, and some people say it's predetermined.
Yeah, but if it is based on deeds and worship, and you have so many gods, my question would be, how do you devote to one God? How do you focus on one? Because if this is determining where you're going, you really want to be focused and giving it your all. And how can you give it your all if you're serving multiple masters at once? The Bible says you can't serve multiple masters. You will love one, despise the other, etc. How can you give your full all and really, because this is obviously the biggest thing for you in this life, because it's the only thing for you right now is to see where you will be going right now. Like you were saying earlier, it's you get reincarnated so many times until you eventually join nirvana. So how would you focus? What God would you pick out of how many numerous million you have to focus on truly giving your all to be reincarnated in higher life?
Okay, so good question.
Most Indians, I would say, they may worship in their daily life one of the gods more regularly. And for example, if they are followers of one of the great gurus or teachers, they may have a Sai Baba, he's one of them, picture in their house, and they may pray toward that, and they may give most of their attention to that. But of course, some of these gurus have turned out to not be as holy as they claimed to be. Some pray to one, some pray to Ganesh, but they do not exclusively focus on one. They may pray to one on a daily basis, but on a particular festival, such as Diwali, they may focus at that time, during those days of that festival, they may focus on Ganesh, or they may focus on, during the Dasara festival, they may focus on Ram, and so on. They do not focus exclusively on one.
And I think the point is it's hard to make it into nirvana without knowing which one to please and what system to adhere to. Okay, next question. You got 2 minutes.
Okay, I have a question for you. Do you have a set like rule book in the Bible?
Absolutely. Yes.
Do you have a Bible? Like does
A book?
Yeah, a book.
Is there a book for Hinduism to follow?
Hinduism is not considered to be a religion of the book, like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. But Hinduism has, first of all, the oldest books are the Rig Vedas. Then there are there are other books that follow those. Okay, so there.
What is it?
Samaveda.
Samarator? Samarator? Samavator? Samaveda?
There are so many different religious books in Hinduism, but there is not, and they believe in many different books, but usually they follow, the Vedas are the most ancient ones, and they stick, most of them follow the Vedas.
Samaveda.
Okay, so since there's so many books, then how do you know which one's right? Because I mean, if you guys can all hold up your Bibles, there's many different translations, but they ultimately say the same thing. So how do you know what's right and what's wrong? Since there's however many, there's 330 million gods, there could be 330 million different books.
So the question is, how do you know what to follow if there's no book? We all have translations from the same source. So we have sort of a unity in our beliefs because we have a book. How is it possible to know what to do?
Often in many parts of Hinduism there isn't a unity of belief. There are many widely different practices in Hinduism. They all have a few things that they agree on, such as reincarnation. Some Hindus don't believe in caste. Some.
Okay.
But it's very hard for them to practice their belief because the social structure of the nation is that way. Even outside Hinduism, it's something that the whole nation observes.
Interesting.
But there are many widely different varying practices in Hinduism.
Yeah. Very good questions. Very good questions. Now, before we get to, we have time for one more question. Sorry. Before we get to our last question, do you have questions for us?
Before his?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I know what his question is.
First of all, because Christians wear this plus sign around themselves, okay? Some of them wear it around their neck, and you have it on top of your buildings. Are you all great aficionados of mathematics? You know.
What is the plus sign? Anybody? Brother Christo, you want to answer that?
The Bible lets us know that without the shedding of blood, that there is no remission of sins. The Bible lets us know without the shedding of blood that there is no remission of sin. Therefore, the Bible also says that in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. If you go further down, it says that God was made flesh, and He dwelt among us. Well, that God that was made flesh, that we can have a personal relationship, who originally had commanded us, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Let us know there's only one God. And it said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your strength, with all your mind. Expressed His love to us. When the Bible says that herein is love, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So even though we were out of relationship with Him, He was so much in love with us that He manifested in the flesh and came to the earth to shed His precious blood so that we can be forgiven. So the plus sign that you see is actually the symbol of the crucifixion that He endured, suffered, and died of in order to pay my price, your price, for sin, so that we can inherit eternal salvation and be with him in a relationship forever. But as was said earlier, he didn't stay dead, because 3 days later he rose up out of that tomb and let us know that he not only conquered sin, but he conquered the grave itself. So some of us wear the plus sign as a reminder of what he did for us.
I have another question.
Okay?
So Jesus died on this plus sign, the cross. So, and
Not a minus.
why that way?
Why did he die that way?
Many people die, but not on that way. Okay, okay, good. Okay, and but more than that is, if this is a good man, a great teacher, and he died, then you can honor him, you can respect him, you can revere his memory. But if he died, what can he do for you now? Why do you ask him for help?
So let me pause and step out of character for a moment. These are questions that perhaps Hindus may have. And this is, for the most part, maybe all except for one particular 10-year-old, for the most part, this is not a debate or a sarcastic, questions. This is very genuine. Particularly an audience member that is not of either persuasion had a good question. So the greatest approach is not to, I'm better than you. And here's why. The greatest approach is, if you had what I have, this is what you would experience, this is what you would know, this is why I believe what I believe, and I'm not debating, I'm just telling you what Brother Christo just brought up is a very powerful, displaying that, packaging that simply for a Hindu to understand is very powerful, the cross. Now this question is a wide open door. What does it matter that he died? What can he do for you now? Man, we all ought to have an answer for that. We all have to have an answer for that. I mean, and the 5-word answer is very powerful right here. What is it that he is able to do? Well, he conquered death. He rose from the dead and promised us that we too will rise from the dead or never even see death and live eternally with him. That's the afterlife. But here in this life we have hope that because he lives and because he conquered hell, death, and the grave and all the things he conquered, we can overcome what we know as evil and sin in this world through his power. He has given us power. 40 days later, 43 days later, 47 days later, there we go. 47 days later, he gave us power to have a life that is superior than someone without this power, in that we can live above sin and have joy and have victories and continue on this path of serving him. He gave us power to do so after he died, because he rose from the dead and poured his Spirit out.
You have mentioned sin several times.
Okay.
What is sin?
Anybody? My dad had this question, and then he said, better not have asked that question. Better God not know. That was his response, because now when you know what sin is, you know that it's sin. What is sin?
Sin is doing what you know is wrong. Even though you know it's wrong, you still do it. And it's something that takes you away from being in relationship with God.
All right. Anybody else have an answer quickly? So sin is knowing you've done wrong, knowing that it's wrong, you do it anyway. What else? Quick.
Well, like you have bad karma, like the karma is like you do something and you know it's bad. Sin is kind of like our way of saying like, oh, you do one thing, you do something and it's bad, then you're gonna have a consequence for it.
So bad karma.
Okay.
Is what we call sin. What else?
Anything that displeases God.
Something that displeases our God is sin. Okay? Shout it out and I'll repeat it.
Disobeying the word of God.
There you go.
Disobeying what is written from God, the Bible. So disobedience to the Bible is sin. Anybody else? That's the right answer, by the way. He decides what sin is, not us.
Okay.
So, and that helps us because we can trust that. We can trust that it's not somebody who's got sin in their life telling us how not to have sin. We can't trust people like we can trust God. He's the only sinless one. So He tells us what sin is. And if we do the things that are contrary to what He wants us to do, we call it sin. Yeah. Oh. Here we go. Wait.
Now, for us, Christ died, and we didn't after that we don't have to sacrifice anything, like the animal or anything. In Hinduism, to get away from the sin, you have to kill a hen, goat, everything.
Really?
Yeah, still now. Or marry a snake or cow or anything. But for us,
Marry a snake?
it's not snake, frog, dog or
Oh,
something.
frog.
Yeah.
Marry it.
Yeah, but for us, we don't have to. We know we have to believe our sins are washed away because Christ died for us. We don't have that person don't have to bring a cattle or anything to wash away the sins.
That's awesome. So what she said is, in Hinduism, they offer sacrifices, or they have to do some strange things like marry a frog?
We offer sacrifices to propitiate the gods, not sacrifices for sin so much.
Okay.
Unless you disagree. But sacrifices to get the God to help us.
Okay.
Yeah, they do like crawling on their knees to the step
Yeah,
to please God.
that is correct. It is not only things being offered at the image,
Yeah.
but it is also these
Physical,
actions.
yeah.
Physical, okay. So we believe, what she's saying is that we don't have to do those things because Jesus Christ died on the cross for us. And so there's a faith system now, and not a physical breaking your knees or killing other animals.
Abusing ourselves.
Yeah.
Because God.
Maybe next week we'll do Catholicism. Okay, do you have any other questions for our final question?
I do not know how much time you have.
We're over time, so
Okay.
we're
We're already over time.
Yeah, a little bit. That's okay. This is great. Isn't this great?
Something they can say to the Hindus.
This is the question. Here we go.